Hello and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories in the week. I'm Teniola Shubowale. The headlines. Pump price of petrol changes. New depot price of commodity is now 151 naira 56 kobo per litre. Re-elected AFDB President Dr. Akinwumi Adesina sworn in for another 5 years. UK judge grants Nigeria relief from $10 billion fine in P&ID oil scandal. Plus, WHO says Africa to get at least 220 million doses for COVID-19 once a vaccine is approved. News Round begins with the UK court judgment, which seems to have given Nigeria some relief as it continues the legal battle to overturn a $10 billion judgment awarded against the country in the now infamous P&ID oil scandal. The judgment of the Business and Property Court of England and Wales now gives Nigeria enough time and relief from sanctions in the case. The trial judge, Ross Cranston, calls it an exceptional case proven by Nigeria, but for the federal government, it's a major victory to properly unveil the dark sides of the P&ID deal, which it says was shrouded in secrecy. It will also avail Nigeria an opportunity to prove that the court shouldn't have awarded a $10 billion fine as damages in a contract it said never existed and was designed to fail from the start.
It started in 2010 when an engineering and project management company, Process and Industrial Development Limited, P&ID, entered into a contract with the Nigerian government to build a state-of-the-art gas processing plant to refine natural gas into lean gas that Nigeria would receive free of charge to power its national electric grid. Under the 20-year agreement, the Nigerian government was to ensure that all necessary pipelines and related infrastructure were installed and that arrangements was made with agencies and third parties to deliver gas for P&ID to process. By 2012, P&ID, which is owned by two Irishmen, claimed that Nigeria failed to meet these commitments, causing the project to flounder. The company on its part said it had already invested $40 million on preparatory engineering work for the takeoff of the project. Arbitration commenced in the same 2012 before a tribunal in London, and for 2 years, Nigeria reportedly failed to respond to the claims. In 2015, the tribunal unanimously concluded that Nigeria was liable, and in 2017, the tribunal ordered President Muhammadu Buhari's government to pay P&ID $6.6 billion in damages, plus interest accruing at an annual rate of 7%. The Buhari government refused to pay, and P&ID proceeded to a British court to enforce the award, which had now risen to $9.6 billion. In 2019, Nigeria was granted the right to appeal and a stay of execution subject to a payment of $200 million. The judgment caused a stir, given that the sum is said to be over 20% of both the country's reserve and the value of its annual exports. The Nigerian government has alleged that the contract was a fraud, and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has expanded its probe on the contract by seeking assistance from the UK and Irish law enforcement agencies. In this latest judgment on the issue, a judge of the Business and Property Courts of England and Wales, Ross Cranston, granted Nigeria's application for an extension of time and relief from sanctions. The judge said that given the strong prima facie case of fraud, which I have concluded Nigeria has established, substantial injustice would be done if the country is deprived of the opportunity of making a challenge should an extension of time be refused. He concluded that it is for these reasons and more that Nigeria should be given an extension of time and relief from sanctions. Shola Sheyeli, Channels Television News.
Now, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina has been sworn in as the president of the Africa Development Bank for a second 5-year term. Dr. Adesina was re-elected on August the 27th after having received a unanimous vote of all the governors of the bank. Some African leaders, including former presidents Goodluck Jonathan and the president of Liberia, George Weah, describes Mr. Adesina as one capable of expanding the frontiers of the continent's economy.
I Akinwumi Ayodeji Adesina,
President of the African Development Bank.
Dr. Akinwumi Adesina's re-election as the president of the African Development Bank for another 5-year term continues to elicit reactions from across the African continent.
So help me God.
Shortly after taking the oath of office at the bank's headquarters, goodwill messages follow.
My darling wife, Grace, my rock, my helper, my counselor, my sweetheart. I love you, honey. I am extremely grateful. Thank you.
The newly inaugurated president of ADB,
Nigeria's former president, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, describes Mr. Adesina as an astute technocrat with the ability to take the multilateral institution to the next level.
let me first congratulate Adesina for making history. Let me also thank all the shareholders for supporting him. And I believe that his second tenure, he will even do better. Dr. Adesina worked with me as my Minister for Agriculture and Natural Resources. And I know what he's made up of. And I believe he will not disappoint the shareholders.
Another African leader, President George Weah of the Republic of Liberia, weighed in. He, like Dr. Jonathan, believes the bank is in good hands with Mr. Adesina at the helm.
Dr. Adesina, my good friend, your re-election signifies Africa's and the world's confidence in your leadership.
First elected into office in 2015, Dr. Adesina becomes only the 4th president to get a second term in the bank's 57-year history, following in the footsteps of Babakar Ndiaye from 1985 to 1995, Omar Kabaj 1995 to 2005, and Donald Kaberuka from 2005 to 2015. As the countdown to the Edo State governorship election scheduled for September 19th begins, one paramount concern of stakeholders is the need to have a peaceful election without rancor or loss of lives. That perhaps is one of the reasons the Oba of Benin called for a meeting with key leaders participating in the election, warning them against setting the state on fire through their actions and comments.
Both parties are prompt for the meeting convened by the revered monarch. The drums of war had beaten too loud for the Oba to bear. There is no ambiguity as to how the Oba feels as he voices his displeasure without mincing words.
Where do we hear that you are arming thugs? Why? At the end of the day, the thugs keep those guns with them. You cannot tell them to. If it is true, I don't know. If it is true, the politicians are arming them. They keep those guns. This is not the first time in Nigerian history. They have been doing this kind of thing before.
The monarch is not about to let them go without a commitment from Governor Obaseki and Pastor Izeyamu.
Edo State is a nation state. Edo State goes all the way past Onitsha. If you want to talk about the kingdom, the empire, Edo State is only the current seat of a major empire in Africa. And you all know that, and you are part of it. Then why are you shooting at each other? Why are you not proud of it? You are part of it. You should be proud of it. You should show you are very mature. But the utterances are here, the statements are here, the activities, most immature. I will want the politicians to please assure us, because enough is enough. We must surprise everybody else that when the election comes, it's peaceful. When the election comes, it's not what they are expecting. Edo State is not like that.
As the Oba's message sinks in, both men immediately assure the monarch that they will comply accordingly.
I want to assure you, Your Majesty, that in my role as the Chief Security Officer of the state, I am doing all I can. I'm doing all within my possible best to maintain peace and safety in Edo State. And to just put it on record that I have no problems whatsoever with my brother Usagi Zayam. We are contestants, we're contesting for the same position, but we have no personal animosities or quarrels or issues.
Every campaign we do henceforth, we're going to spend some time to also talk to all of them about the need to keep to the peace, no matter what provocation they might talk about.
The assurance is sealed with a hug, a symbol of truce and a demonstration of peaceful conduct as the election looms. The people of Edo State and Nigerians generally will expect that the embrace is not merely for the cameras, but genuine commitment to cease the violence and allow the people to decide who rules them.
And now to aviation, where workers in the sector embarked on nationwide protests against the federal government's decision to concession some airports in the country. The staff, under the auspices of Association of Nigerian Aviation Professionals and National Air Transport Employees of Nigeria, insist that the concessioning will lead to loss of jobs in the industry.
Members of the four aviation unions alongside representatives of the Nigerian Labour Congress embark on a peaceful protest around the major roads linking the Muritala Mohammed Airport in Lagos. The work caused traffic gridlock on some roads within the airport as vehicular movement was impeded. The unions say the manner in which the Minister of Aviation, Senator Adesina, is going about the proposed concessioning of some of the country's major airports is not in their best interest.
We made it clear to the Honourable Minister that concessioning of airports has a lot of problems. And we propose solutions. We say we are not saying don't do concession, but we give him options. We said, why don't you cooperatize fund? Float fund into the capital market. Fund can generate its fund to run the affairs of this airport. We have the capacity and manpower to manage these facilities to world-class standard.
Members of the union in Abuja are not left out as they are joined by the Nigerian Labour Congress President Ayuba Waba in the exercise.
This is just an appetizer.
Apart from the fear of job losses, aviation workers are also kicking against the government's directive to return all staff that retired from the 1st of April 2014 to PENCOM for payment of retirement benefits. At the Ilorin International Airport in Kwara State, the situation is the same. Union workers are up in protest, wondering why the cash cow airports are listed for this exercise.
If you are a private businessman, you want to maximize profit. And the best way you can maximize profit is to do what? You reduce the number of staff. Okay, if this fund has been taken over, who takes care of the remaining airport? Who pays the salary?
In Kano State, staff of the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria also joined the protest. They say they're fully aware of their losses if government has its way. The concession of airports has had a long history. The only successful concession is that of the 13-year-old Muritala Mohammed Airport 2, which was designed as a build, operate and transfer project. This airport has been a subject of controversy, sometimes legal, between the Federal Airport Authority and the operator Bykotni Aviation Services. Over the years, industry experts have alleged that the major problem with attempts to concession the airport has to do with the fact that those who want to midwife the program are not ready for a transparent process. Bukola Joe Oketumbi, Channels Television News.
The World Health Organization says Africa to get at least 220 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine once it's approved. That and more after the break. There is a new price regime for premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, in the country, with the commodity now selling at 151 naira 56 kobo per litre from the initial 148 naira. With this, Nigerians will now have to pay an average of 10% more on the commodity. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva, explains that the nation has gone into full deregulation and market forces now determine the price of the product.
24 hours after a PPMC Ibadan depot internal memo advising on a new ex-depot price of 151 naira 56 kobo for premium motor spirit hit the headlines.
This country can not at this time continue to afford this subsidy. It's spending over a trillion on subsidy every year.
The ripple effects are already being felt across the country. In the nation's capital, it's a bitter pill to swallow, judging from reactions of the first callers at some petrol stations. In Lagos, southwest Nigeria, from the mainland to the island, prices at the pump vary, depending on the marketer, with a litre of petrol dispensed at a cost between 159 and 162 naira. This reality is yet to be embraced by motorists.
A lot of Nigerians are going through terrible time at this time. A lot of people have lost their jobs. Those who are working, they have pay cuts. A lot of businesses are struggling to survive. And to think that the government will visit us with an increase in fuel price, not to talk of that, there's also an increase in PHN tariff. This is not just the time.
From 148 naira, meters have been adjusted to 161 naira per litre in Kaduna State in the northwest. Most of the fuel stations have also followed suit, laying to rest any further doubt as to how the market fundamentals move fast.
It's unbearable. The situation is terrible.
Staying in the north, the new price is already hitting consumers hard in Niger State as they lament the price difference. This situation may have informed the DPR's warning against sharp practices and arbitrary changes. But there's a bit of cheery news in Abia State in the southeast. While the adjustment has been made to the pump price, transportation fare remains the same.
I cannot even fathom it. As we wake up one morning and there's an increase. Yeah, I just bought 164 naira per litre.
Going forward, the price of crude sold to the consumers will now be a reflection of market realities like international crude oil price, dollar rate, summer and winter periods, landing costs, and many others. Finding a lower margin of sales will be a function of efficiency, low crude production costs, which is being pursued vigorously by the GMD of the NNPC, in-country refining capacity, fighting pipeline vandalism, among other factors that may determine pricing.
Apart from the hike in the price of petrol, electricity unions and consumers have continued to condemn the new electricity tariff hike imposed by electricity distribution companies. They say the increment is a disregard for the challenges faced by Nigerians and also ill-timed. But electricity companies are insisting that there is no perfect time for the tariff to take effect as the current pricing system continues to impede investment in the sector.
The Nigerian power sector has been through phases. Despite the investment and reforms, the sector has produced recurring dismal performance, with electricity consumers constantly groaning over poor power supply. Recently, President Muhammadu Buhari ordered a mass metering program for consumers, and that has not even taken off. A new tariff regime is announced. This goes to maintain a 4 naira tariff for all customers consuming less than 50 kilowatts hour of energy per month. For most discos, there is a tariff freeze for those who don't enjoy up to 12 hours of power supply daily. But for the upper band, the tariff rose to as high as 56 naira from 40 naira. Raf, a trader who lives at Okera area of Lagos, says his neighborhood has been in constant battle with the electricity distribution company over estimated billing, and now with the new tariff, it sees a rip-off.
We had a consensus so that they should, give us, meter bill, card meter or meter card. So we did that meeting among ourselves with the landlord, and everybody were arrived at the conclusion that if not card meter, no billing. We won't pay, even if they give us, because they keep on bringing crazy bills every now and then. So they find out that if they distribute this meter, they are the one to lose.
To get supply.
Ralph's story is not different from this self-employed Lagos resident who is also not metered.
It will be good for the tariff, to be revised to, to present realities. It will be good, yeah, that's on the one hand. Whereas on the other hand, we have a case where a lot of consumers have not been metered. And even with the present lower tariff, a lot of consumers cannot even afford the outrageous estimated bills. They haven't been following the capping order initially. Who's to say they are going to follow this capping order now, when NEC has not demonstrated initially that they are able to put this discourse, in check?
The discourse admit that the metering is tied to the tariff, but the capping method is expected to ensure that consumers are not cheated.
Metering investments are tied to tariffs. The investments will only happen if the tariffs are right. Now that the tariffs are right, the investments will come in. There is now a ceiling because those who are not being metered were being estimated. There is now a cap on estimated billings. There is a methodology to protect them. They may even come out better off than if they had meters.
The discourse insists that the current pricing system is not only unsustainable, but also not investor-friendly, and that necessitated this journey to a contract-based market, a move already condemned by some customers. Dari Idowu, Channels Television News.
News round ends with the World Health Organization saying that once a COVID-19 vaccine is approved, Africa will get at least 220 million initial doses. The first batch is expected to go to frontline healthcare workers and vulnerable groups, and the distribution will be based on the population of each country. WHO Africa Program Area Manager Richard Mihigo says all 54 countries had expressed interest in the global vaccine initiative called COVAX, which intends to help purchase and fairly distribute 2 billion doses of approved vaccine by the end of 2021.
We are in this together. No country will be safe if any other country in the world still has cases of COVID. So it's in the interest of the whole world for us as we deal with this generational crisis to be sure that vaccines are not only accessible to the continent, but accessible in a timely fashion.
By pulling together not only the demand, but also to pull together the buying power of a member. This is a global initiative. And from the African continent in particular, as we have heard from Honorable Minister, high income and middle income countries have agreed to self-finance the vaccines.
And that's News Round this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shubowale. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.